Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa on France 24. I'm Fraser Jackson. Here are the stories making headlines across the continent this evening. It's been 20 years since an overloaded Senegalese passenger ferry sank off the coast of the Gambia, killing almost 1,900 people. Our correspondent reports on the disaster dubbed Africa's Titanic. A free-falling economy and years of political unrest have taken their toll on Sudanese youth, with thousands a day leaving the country in the hopes of a better future. And you may not think of Tunisia when you think of olive oil production, but we'll meet some of the young entrepreneurs trying to make the North African country another hotspot for Mediterranean olive oil. But first, it's been dubbed Africa's Titanic. 20 years ago today, Senegalese ferry the Joola sank off the coast of the Gambia, killing almost 1,900 people. With over 300 more deaths than the Titanic, it became the second worst maritime disaster during peacetime. Just 64 people survived. Our correspondent in Senegal, Sam Bradpeace, tells us more about the wound that never heals.
When the Joola ferry left Senegal's southern city of Ziguinchor, it was already tilting to one side. It was about 4 times over capacity, one of the engines wasn't working properly, and basic safety checks hadn't been carried out. After it capsized off the coast of the Gambia at around midnight, it took official rescuers somewhere in the region of 17 hours to arrive. Ili Diatta lost his brother in the disaster. Today, he's one of many Senegalese people calling for justice.
Today, there are 3 key things that we want following the Joola disaster: truth and justice, the removal of the ship from the seabeds, and psychosocial support. These things are vitally important for us because they encapsulate the Joola in a way. With close to 2,000 victims, we can't just let it go. We'll continue searching for justice. Justice will be done. That's very important to us.
Senegalese prosecutors dropped an investigation as to what happened with the Joola in 2003, just 1 year after the disaster. They blamed the ship's captain, who is among the dead, for what was clearly more of a systematic failure. The Joola disaster might not be as famous as the Titanic in large part because there was no Hollywood fictionalization, but it was certainly more deadly. And here in Senegal, the pain continues to run deep to this day.
It's been a week since Uganda declared an Ebola outbreak in the country, and since then, cases and deaths have risen sharply. Over 20 deaths are suspected to have been caused by the virus, although official tolls stand at 4. Over 30 cases have also been confirmed now. Medical personnel working at the hospital at the epicenter of the outbreak have gone on strike, claiming the government has failed to provide adequate safety equipment. The outbreak is being caused by the Sudan strain of the virus, for which there's no current vaccine. It is, however, thought to be less deadly and less transmissible than the Zaire strain that caused thousands of deaths in DR Congo in recent years. Next, after a lack of orders for domestically made vaccines, South Africa's Aspen Pharmacare, the continent's first COVID-19 vaccination plant, has been saved from closure. Less than 1% of vaccines currently used on the continent are made locally, but the African Union hopes to boost that number to 40% by 2040. Nadine Theron reports from Cape Town.
79,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine will be handed to the people of Liberia by the South African government this week. South Africa signed a deal with the African Union's Vaccination Acquisitions Trust, AVIT, to contribute more than 2 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine to the African continent. In addition to Liberia, Sierra Leone, Madagascar, Burkina Faso and Sudan have all also been recipients. And most of these vaccines were manufactured locally in South Africa's Aspen Pharmacare plant in Gqeberha in the Eastern Cape. Last year, Johnson & Johnson gave Aspen Pharma permission to bottle and distribute its COVID-19 vaccines to the African continent, making it the first COVID vaccination plant in Africa. But the groundbreaking plant faced closure and almost closed its doors had it not been for a deal with India's Serum Institute signed this month. In August, Aspen Pharma South Africa's CEO said it had not received a single order for the locally manufactured vaccine Aspinovax. Now, 4 routine pediatric vaccines will also be manufactured at the plant with bulk supplies from India's Serum Institute, keeping it operational for now. COVID-19 vaccination uptake remains low on the African continent. Only 29% of the population has been jabbed at least once.
Sudan is hemorrhaging young people as they leave the country looking for a brighter future. Years of protests against military rule and a deepening economic crisis have led up to 1,500 people a day to head north to Egypt and even further afield. Caroline Lambley has the story.
These young Sudanese men aren't hoping to visit Egypt's pyramids. They're queuing to get visas and bus tickets to get them across the border, where many of them are seeking an education and a brighter economic future. For some, the final destination is further afield.
People don't go to Egypt to settle down. It's just a crossing, a stopover. People stay 2 or 3 months to collect $1,000 or $2,000. And then they head to the Libyan border, to a place called Marsa Matruh near Alexandria. From there, they enter Libya and go to Kufra, where they stay for a while, 6 or 7 months.
Sudan has been grappling with political uncertainty since 2019. Longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir was overthrown in an uprising that year. And in October 2021, a military coup ousted the civilian-led government that had followed Bashir's departure. This led to more protests and an increase in departures. This bus driver says that the number of buses leaving for Egypt have doubled compared to last year, with as many as 30 buses transporting some 1,500 passengers daily. With inflation on the rise and the cost of living spiraling, staying wasn't an option for this woman who moved to Cairo.
I decided to come to Egypt because the protests have caused everything to become so expensive. Everything is expensive. If you want to buy bread, you need to stand in line for 3 or 4 hours. It's very difficult.
The Sudanese pound depreciated by 950% over the past 4 years, leaving many people struggling to get by.
Rising inflation and political uncertainty have been 2 of the main drivers pushing people to leave Tunisia to head to Europe. Over 13,000 people have arrived on Italian shores so far this year. It's become so common that it's something openly discussed among families. Our team report.
In this house in the town of Bouhajla, neighbors and relatives are hoping to recover the body of a man lost at sea. A father of 2, he was on a boat full of migrants that sank on September 6.
It's all his clothes. I don't know what will happen to us.
Sabeh, his wife, sold all their bedroom furniture to pay for his trip that cost 1,600 euros. She and her husband took the risk to improve their economic conditions.
He was working for 20 dinars a day. But what can you do today with 20 dinars a day? Once you buy a pack of diapers and milk, that's it, it's done. He would get work one day and nothing for 10 days. Our conditions are difficult.
In this town where the poverty rate is high at 32%, nearly every family has seen a relative migrate seeking a new life by boat. Hazem, 22, survived a shipwreck. Without stable employment, like other young people, he was attracted by the success of those who made it to Italy.
On Facebook, at the cafe, everyone talks about it, young and old. It's not just talk among neighborhood youth.
With an 18% increase this year, irregular migration has become normal for Tunisian families, according to this researcher. More than 2,000 minors and more than 600 women left this year.
They travel as families because they have family there, they have contacts there, they have a community. The act of crossing is in itself a social success because it's escaping a social situation considered very complicated and chaotic.
Stricter visa policies by Europe are linked to this migration trend. This engineer, who wanted to remain anonymous, was refused a visa even after she was hired by a French company and received an authorization from the Interior Ministry and had all her documents in order.
When sending my application, I didn't even imagine this refusal. It was really shocking for me.
This autumn, France announced it would reform its visa procedures, but Tunisians who want to migrate formally are feeling increasingly frustrated.
And finally, staying in Tunisia, you may not think of the country as a hotbed of olive oil production, but some young entrepreneurs are trying to change that. Used to exporting their product just for it to be repackaged in Italy, these slick business types are hoping to dip into the market and put Tunisian olive oil production on the map. Take a look.
Knowing how to smell and taste, two essential skills to be a good oleologist, like a wine sommelier but for olive oil. In the historic Medina of Sousse, this entrepreneur shows what it takes to do oil tasting.
So this noise is to let the air into the mouth, to diffuse the oil and reveal its attributes.
These enthusiasts, professionals, and farmers have to know how to detect the balance of chemical and sensory elements.
Tu sens l'amande, la pomme?
Oui, l'amande des pommes.
They're looking for a mix of fruitiness, spiciness, and bitterness. Soraya wants to create a community of tasters who will also be able to draw attention to Tunisian brands. She features some at her olive oil bar.
Welcome, welcome.
A whole young generation of farmers are investing in quality, investing in Tunisian land, and we really want them to have an international platform.
Tunisia already has 22 certification panels, but the oleology profession isn't well known. In the historic Medina of Sfax, an organization trains visually impaired young people in olive oil tasting.
That one is very spicy. I would give it a mark between 4.5 and 5.
Their trainer hopes to make them experts.
The idea is to show these young people who are different that there are new professions that are accessible to them.
They hope to get international certification so that these young people can earn recognized qualifications.
That's it for The Citizen. Stay tuned to France 24. More news coming up shortly.
In 2021, the Burmese army brutally regained power after 10 years of democracy. Thousands of civilians were killed and imprisoned. The country itself cut off from the world. But resistance is growing. Dissidents in exile, rebel military leaders, deserters from the Burmese army in Karen territory or neighboring Thailand all share their fears and hopes for revenge in an exclusive report with clandestine networks.
I want to fight Burmese soldier. I want to kill.
Watch Reporters on France 24 and France24.com.